y'all, and welcome back. So before we even get started, let's go ahead and acknowledge that your girl got her furniture. Praise God. No more picnic chair, beach chair. I don't even know what that kind of chair is called. It's the chair that you take to the football games with you. But I have my furniture is finally here. So I want to acknowledge that real quick. Your girl got some aesthetics. It's not the best still, but we making it do what it do. Anyway, welcome back. I want to talk to you guys today about grace for the alternative. And the alternative meaning, grace for the unanswered prayers. And I don't really like calling it unanswered prayers, right? Because I believe that God always has an answer. We just may not always like his answer, or we may not always agree or be in a posture of acceptance to his answer. But that doesn't mean that he is any less sovereign, or that, like, for real, we just adding candles in the middle of the podcast. Hello, yes. Okay. As I was saying, we just gonna keep it real here, okay? No edits. Yes, my husband just walked in to put a candle because he's all about the aesthetics. Anyway.
And I want it to smell good.
They can't smell through the camera. Anyway, like I said, I don't like referring to it as an unanswered prayer, because I believe that God is always answering. He's always speaking. And it's just a matter of us being willing to listen and to hear. And sometimes it's because we are expecting the answer to come a certain way, or to come in a certain package, that because we're so married to our idea, that when God answers, we don't even see it because we're so focused on how we wanted it to come. Prime example, and I've used this example before, but like even with COVID, COVID for a lot of people was a blessing, and then for a lot of people it wasn't that favorable either. But through it all, I feel like a lot of prayers were answered and were overlooked because that's not how we expected it to come. There were some of us who were asking to have more time with our family. There were some of us who were praying for another job. There were some of us who were praying for to start a business. There were some of it, like there's just so many things that we were praying for. And then COVID happened. And some of those prayers were answered because it gave you an opportunity to spend time with your family. It gave you an opportunity to get some rest. It gave you an opportunity to work from home. It gave you the opportunity to start the business. It gave you the opportunity to do a lot of things, but that's not the way that we expected it. So for some of us, we lost our job first before we could start the business or before we could start the new job. And it was like, that's not how I wanted it to happen. And we get upset about those things, right? And so it's not necessarily that it was an unanswered prayer. It was answered. It just wasn't answered the way that you wanted it to be answered. And sometimes when God answers another way, we get upset, we get disappointed. And I'm not saying that you can't get upset or disappointed. As a matter of fact, I have a couple of prayers that were answered an alternative way that I had to sit and reflect on to remind myself that, okay, yeah, I'm getting in my feelings because he ain't answered this way. For example, well, before I get into that, let me go to the first thing. I wrote stuff down, y'all, to kind of keep me on track because I know that I could go off on a tangent sometimes, and I didn't want to do that. So I wrote some points down for myself. And one of the first things that I wanted to talk about is when it appears to be an unanswered prayer, it often leads to disappointment and confusion and even anger, especially when we believe that what we're praying for is something that's in alignment with God's will, right? And so I'll even say that with like the sale of our house, right? we were believing that it was going to sell. Now we know that this market is not the best. It is not a seller's market at all. I wouldn't even say so much that it's a buyer's market, because the prices for some of these houses that are selling are quite high. But anyways, it's just not, it's not a seller's market. I mean, the new builds probably getting some sales, but it is what it is. We knew that going into this, right? At the same time, we were stepping out on faith, and we're believing like, okay, God, we believe you told us to move, for us to go. All right, this is going to take a financial feat, right? Coming up here, especially, I've already shared with you guys before that at the time, neither one of us had a job. So it's just like, okay, we need this house to sell, right? But that's not the way that God answered. And so the house sat on the market, I want to say, for about 45 days or maybe longer. I can't remember. And for some of you, you may say that's nothing. I know somebody whose house been on the market for like 9 months, or, whatever. And that may be true. But for us, it was long, because we were paying both a mortgage and a rent. And for a family that did not have a job, paying a mortgage and a rent, savings got spent. Okay. So we were like, no, we need this to sell, or we need to get a renter. I thank God for how he answered it. And we were able to rent our home instead. But that wasn't what we were praying for. We weren't praying that we could rent it. Now, I'll be truthful with you guys. There's a part of me that was like, I would love to keep my home. I would love to be able to rent it out and still have that property in Florida. But I also knew that selling that house was going to alleviate some funds for us. I know it was going to allow us to take care of, some debt and all that other stuff. So it was like, what would I prefer, to keep my house or be able to pay things off? I want to pay things off. You know what I'm saying? And so that's what I was believing for. But I do remember maybe a few weeks, I don't know how long it was, but Anthony and I were at the gym, and the thought crossed my mind, what if he answers another way? And I said it to Anthony. I was just like, we're believing that God is going to do it through the sale of our house. What if he doesn't? And I honestly feel like that was God preparing me for the house not to sell, even though I was still believing for it to sell. I believe he was preparing my heart to say, Hannah, I'm going to answer another way. And I think that it comes down when we actually spend time with God and get into his word, that we know know his character, know his voice, know what he's saying. Like, that thought did not come from me. Like, why would I be thinking about the house not selling? I wanted it to sell. So I know that was the Holy Spirit talking to me and preparing my heart for that, to accept like it's not going to sell. And so I will say that I had a peace about it when we finally made the decision to take it off the market and to relist it as a rental. And I'm grateful to the family that we were able to rent it to, because it was a blessing for them as well. And so it's just like, you never really know what God is about to do. And when I say that, what I mean is, because if you walk with him and you seek him, he will reveal things to you. It's just like I learned this weekend in regards to being a friend of God. God reveals things to his friends. And the example that was given was Abraham and Lot, and how both Abraham and Lot were considered righteous men, right? And Abraham, when God decided that he was going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, which is where Lot was living, God decided, I'm going to go talk to Abraham about it first before I do that. And he went to Abraham and he told Abraham what his plan was. And that's when Abraham was like, well, if 50 can be found, would you still destroy it? And then he got all the way down to like 5, I think. And then, he prayed for Lot, because God was like, I'm still going to destroy it because I can't find anybody there. And so the speaker was talking about the two differences between Abraham and Lot, and how both were righteous men, but one was a friend of God and knew what God was getting ready to do, because God reveals what he's doing to his friends. Whereas the other one, even though he was righteous, he was in the dark. He's a Christian, but he did not know what God was getting ready to do. And so a lot of times when we are walking with him and we're spending time with him and we are, living in obedience to his word, God will reveal things to us about what he's getting ready to do. And I feel like that was him revealing to me, I know you're praying for this, but I'm letting you know I'm going to answer another way. Will you trust me? And that's really what it comes down to a lot of times, is are we going to trust God when he answers another way? We say this often, and I don't want to say that it's a cliche, but the whole delay is not denied. You know what I'm saying? Things may be delayed in your life. It may not necessarily be a no. It just may be a not right now. And sometimes we don't like that, because that's disappointing. It is disappointing. It was disappointing not to sell the house, because that means the debt didn't go anywhere. It's still there. That means that we still had to, take care of the mortgage until the renters came in and their new month started. So it's just like, okay, God, things are getting kind of tight. You didn't answer this way. So what is your answer? Like, I'm not going to lie to y'all. I've asked that question. What is the answer? You know what I'm saying? How are you going to answer this? I know that you're going to do this where no man can boast. I can't say I didn't. Anthony can't say he did it. No one can say that, oh, it was because of this or because of that. It was just because of God and his sovereignty and his grace and his mercy, and he will get all the glory. And I also say that while I'm waiting for him to do it the way that he wants to, I still have my moments of like, okay, I don't know how you're doing this. But I just want to encourage you in regards to that. It's okay. Like, think about Hannah, right? Hannah prayed and was praying and praying for a child, and she was barren, but she told God how she felt. She was in distress. I believe it talked about how, so this is in Samuel chapter 1, and it's through verses 1 through 20, talking about the story of Hannah and how she prayed for Samuel. And year after year she prayed, but felt the emotional weight of not having the child. Plus she had somebody that was making fun of her for being barren, right? And she experienced deep distress and bitterness, but she still poured her heart out to God and let him know. And he already knew, but he wants us to be honest with him in regards to how we're feeling, in regards to how we may be disappointed about something. And so, but she poured her heart out and she told him how she felt. And God did answer her by giving her a child, right? But it took some time. It didn't happen right away, And so I think sometimes in our waiting, we get discouraged. In our waiting for the answer, we start to doubt. The enemy comes in and will start creating these lies in our head, like, well, did God say? Or just like he did with Eve, is this, like, even with this move, right? With those moments of the quote unquote unanswered prayers, or it not being the answer that we wanted, the enemy has tried to come into our minds with, did God really tell us to move up here? Was this really the right decision? Like, things are tight, things are difficult. Like, we feel sometimes that when God has told us to do something, we think it's going to be easy. Like, where in the Bible does it say that it was going to be easy? Show me one biblical character who had an easy life. And yet still we sit here thinking that we're supposed to have this life of ease, that everything is supposed to come easy to us, that we're just supposed to have this. And I don't want to say rest, because we are supposed to have rest, but we're supposed to have rest in him. The peace of God comes when we find rest in him despite the situation. It's just like how Jesus was on the boat, fast asleep, when the storm came and the disciples came to him and woke him and was like, do you not care that we perish? And Jesus is like, Do you not know who is in your presence? Like, I'm here. I'm asleep. Do you not call me the Messiah? Do you not believe who I am? And you're worried about this storm? I speak to the storm. And yet still, we do the same things as the disciples. We focus so much on our circumstances. We focus so much on the situation around us that we lose our peace. God said that peace he gives to us, peace he leaves with us, not as the world gives. And yet still, the peace that he has already given to us, we let sit right there and don't take it up. We put it down and decide to stress and worry about things. And then we want to get upset with God when he's not answering or he's not doing it the way that we want him to, instead of really finding rest in him and really just saying, okay, God, I'm going to let go control. And that's another thing. I'm getting ahead of myself, because that's another point that I have on here in regards to us getting upset about the alternative to what we're requesting is control. It's us wanting to control the situation. It's us wanting to control our lives. And it's like, who is Lord? Is he really Lord over your life? Is he really the one that you're trusting in? Proverbs 3:5-6 tells us to trust in the Lord with all our heart, leaning not onto our own understanding, but in all our ways acknowledging him so that he can direct our paths. Yet still we say that. We say we're trusting him, but then we tell him, God, this is how I want it to be done. We treat God like he's Burger King and that we're going to have it our way. He's God. It's either we going to trust him or we're not. It's either we going to stand on our faith or we're not. What is faith? Faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. It is the evidence of what we cannot see. You cannot see the situation. I do not know how this is going to play out, but my faith tells me that it's working together for my good, because I truly believe that this is what God has said for me to do. Right? Whatever it is that you're believing for. And that's another thing. Like we look for signs and we're asking God for signs. And I'm guilty of it. I'm guilty of asking him, okay, God, just show me a sign. Let me know that I'm on the right path. Right? And there's nothing absolutely wrong with asking God for a sign. It is, and there's places in the Bible that talks about when they ask for signs. Like, so for example, when the Pharisees were asking Jesus for the sign, he refused because there was no sign that Jesus could perform or do that was going to actually make them believe. Because they didn't. They saw him. They knew who he was. They saw the signs that he was doing. They saw the people that he healed. They saw what was happening, and they still were asking for a sign. They were saying that, they were using what the works that he was doing against him. Right? But then there's people like Gideon who asked for a sign, and God gave him the sign. He said, allow this fleece to be dry and all the ground around it to be wet. God did it. And he was like, okay, God, don't be upset with me, but now allow the fleece to be wet and all the ground around it to be dry. When you think about when Gideon asked that and he said, don't be upset with me, but can you do this again? Gideon already knew, like, him asking for a sign was having weak faith. And we have to admit to ourselves that when we're asking God as a believer, right? I'm not talking about the non-believers, because obviously the non-believers are like, well, can I have a sign so I know that you're real? But for us who believe, who already seen the works in our lives, who already know for ourselves, we don't even have to look at somebody else's testimony. We can look back on our own lives and reflect on the many times that God has come through and has made a way out of no way for us. We have that. But even though we have that, we will still say, God, show me a sign that this is right. Show me a sign that you are working in my life right now. Show me a sign that this is what's happening. That's actually a sign of spiritual immaturity. That's actually a sign of being weak in your faith. And this is not me judging anybody, because, hey, I have asked for signs, plenty of them. I have even heard the Lord tell me, what more do you want me to do? I have given you several signs. I have sent several people to confirm what I have already said to you. Hannah, I'm not sending anymore. It's either you gonna obey or you not. And when God says that, that makes you like, okay, all right, I'm sorry, Lord, forgive me. I thank you for your grace, because it's really his grace and his mercy that covers us, that God, deals with us when we are being stubborn and rebellious, because that's what it is. It's rebellion. It's rebellion to not just do what he has asked us to do, because he's done so much. If he didn't do another thing, he's already done more than enough. What more signs do we need? It's not signs and wonders that we need right now. We just need to obey. We just need to trust. And when he answers another way, or his way, because his ways are not our ways, his thoughts are not our thoughts, and yet still we are asking him to do it the way that we want it to. When we are not the beginning and the end, that's God. We are not Alpha and Omega, that's God. God is the all-knowing God. He is the one who knows all, sees all, is the author and the finisher of our faith. We don't even know what tomorrow brings. We actually don't even know what the next second brings. Yet still we're trying to tell God how to answer our prayers, how he needs to do it, when he needs to do it. And then we get upset. And I'm not saying you can't get upset. Feel how you feel. But truth is still truth. And I'm not saying your truth. I'm talking about the truth. His word is still true. And he is sovereign. He is still sovereign, even though he may answer another way and not answer the way that we want him to. And so I just want to encourage you guys, start writing down some of these things that you're asking God for. And write them down. Write down what your prayer requests are, because I like to journal. Right. And so, I want to give you a journal prompt. Write down your unanswered prayers and the emotions you associate with them. What are you feeling towards God in this season? Allow yourself to grieve what hasn't happened while inviting God into the conversation. What am I saying? There's nothing wrong with being disappointed. We just can't stay in that disappointment. So as we are feeling the disappointment of him not answering something the way that we wanted him to, let's take a moment to write that down and invite God in to the conversation and say to him, God, I don't know what you're doing in this season of my life. I don't know how you're going to work this thing out. But in this moment, I'm grieved. I'm disappointed, because this is what I was praying for. And it doesn't seem like this is the way you're going to answer it. So help me to accept your answer, to embrace your answer, because I trust you and I know that you know what's best for me. I know you know better. I know that this isn't really a no, but it's a better yes. I know that this really isn't a no, it could be a right now. I know that this could be, I'm protecting you from something that you don't even realize is around the corner if I allow this to happen. I know that this could also mean that you're saying to me that there's still some maturing I need to do before I can actually have this in my life, because I'm not ready for it, and you don't want to give anything to me prematurely. Invite him into the conversation. Now, I'm not saying that when you do that you're going to get your answer as to why he answered another way, but you are going to learn his character. You are going to get to know him more, because you're going to get to know him as a loving God, as a compassionate God, as a God who hears, as a God who feels, as a God who comforts, as a God who does care about your heart and how you're feeling and your disappointment. And he's also asking you, will you trust me? Will you trust me with this? Will you release your control? Will you really allow me to come in and sit on the throne of your heart? Will you really allow me to be the one that directs your path? You say that you're not going to lean onto your own understanding, but in all your ways, you're going to acknowledge me so I can direct your path. Are you really going to let me do that? Or are you going to keep holding on to things and keep trying to make things happen for yourself? There's also times when we are asking God for something and we don't hear anything. And it's like God is being silent in the moment. God's silence doesn't mean that he's absent, because his word tells us that he'll never leave us nor forsake us. So he's not absent. He's right there. Maybe let me offer this for your consideration. It could be that he's not answering because you're so distracted by what you want that you're missing what he's actually saying. So you can't hear him. So it seems like he's silent, but he really isn't. You just are missing what he's saying because you're so distracted by what you want to have or what you think you don't have. We often get very caught up in our lack and what we don't have. Anthony reminded me the other day of the story of Martha and Mary. And I if you listen to any of the old episodes of Hannah's World, I often compared myself to Martha. I still got Martha tendencies, but I have learned to be a lot more like Mary recently. And I'm still learning how to balance, because both Martha and Mary are necessary, right? But to the point that Anthony was making by bringing them up, he was talking about the fact of Martha and how she was so busy with trying to make preparations for Jesus, right? And she goes to Jesus and she says to him, Jesus, because Mary was sitting at his feet while he was talking, and he was like, Jesus, tell Mary to come and help me. And he told her that he wasn't going to do it because she chose the better thing. See, sometimes we're so focused on what we don't have. She was focused on the fact that she didn't have help because she wanted to get things done, not even recognizing who she had in her house, whose presence she was not allowing herself to be in awe of, because of the fact that she was focused on her lack. She missed on what she had. There's so many of us who miss what we currently have because of the fact that we're so focused on what we don't have, or what we wish we could have, or what is not going right. I'm guilty of that. I'm guilty of sometimes getting caught up in what's not done and caught up in what I want to see happen. That's the control again. That's controlling, because you want this to be perfect. You want this to be this way. You want this to be put in its place. You want that. You want that. And you're not resting and being in the presence of just realizing, oh Lord, I thank you. I thank you that I have my family here. I thank you for this house. I thank you for all the things. Like even when I was telling you guys at the first podcast, didn't have my furniture yet. But I was like, I wasn't going to let not having my furniture yet stop me from recording my first episode. I did not in that moment want to focus on my lack, on what I didn't have, and use that as an excuse not to move forward. I was like, I still got the equipment. I got a chair I could sit in. I could go ahead and record. God, I thank you that I still had means to get the job done. We often need to just stop and pause and reflect. And that also helps us have a heart of gratitude. Because again, when we sit down and reflect and we journal down the things that we could be grateful for, all the things that we don't have yet, all the things that we think we're lacking, they don't seem so big anymore. And then our heart is filled with gratitude to give God glory for the things that we do have, for the things that He has blessed us with already. That's how we learn to have contentment. Be content with what we have and not focus on what we don't. I'm trying to go over my notes, y'all. I also want to say that it's good. A lot of times, people say, well, I wasn't praying for patience in the first place. But patience is a fruit of the Spirit, right? The Holy Spirit produces love, joy, peace, faithfulness, gentleness, kindness, patience, long suffering. Like, patience is a fruit of the Spirit. Whether you're asking for patience or not, if you are being led by the Holy Spirit, that is a fruit that you should be bearing. That is a fruit that should be applied in your life. And so because God loves us and because the Holy Spirit dwells within us, we will have moments where we have to exercise patience. And so learning patience and surrender in a season of unanswered prayers, or the alternative answer, it allows us to develop something that doesn't come naturally to us, especially when we live in this world of this insta society, wanting everything now. I want it now. I don't want to have to wait. I want it to come to me now. However, God often uses these moments to teach us trust and surrender. Because if you didn't have to wait for it, then what you need faith for? Like, if everything just came to you this quick, then you don't need faith to believe that it's coming. You don't need faith to believe that it will happen, because it's already happening. So, and if it's already happening and everything is going the way that we want it to, again, we're in control. We're not surrendering. So sometimes God will answer another way because he's trying to teach us patience. He's trying to teach us how to surrender. He's trying to teach us how to let go and truly allow him to move in our lives. And the thing is that it's not even about us. God loves us so much that he's just like, he has so much patience with us, because we want everything our way, because we really think that this is about us, but it's not. We were created for his glory, for his purpose. So if he wants to make us wait, then we gonna wait. Who are we to tell God, oh no, I shouldn't have to wait. I should get it right now. Oh no, it shouldn't happen this way. It should happen like that. We are not God. What earth did we create? When did we tell the sea how far it could go? When did we tell the sun when it could shine? But yet still, we have this list of demands, these list of wishes, these list of things that we want God to do in our lives. And we don't want to just surrender. A practical exercise would be to have like a surrender prayer. Because honestly, it's not easy to surrender. I do have control in moments. One of the reasons why I don't like to fly is because I have to fully submit my control to the pilot of the plane, who I do not know. I don't know where he got his pilot license from. I don't know how long he was in school. I know nothing about him or her. Let me not, I don't know anything about this person. I am getting on this plane and I am fully surrendering all my control to this person, hoping that they got a good night's sleep the night before and is not sleepy at the helm. And if anything does go wrong, there is absolutely nothing that I can do other than, Lord, I'm coming home to meet you. That's it. And so I do have control issues sometimes. I do. And so I really relate to this. I know that a lot of times God is saying, okay, Hannah, you going to let go of control? Like this, all of this has been I'm surrendering. And then sometimes we surrender and we pick it back up. And then we got to surrender it again. And God is like, every time you pick it up, you stop me from being able to move in your life. I need you to let it go and leave it there. And don't pick it back up. Let it go and leave it there and stop worrying about it. Let me handle it. Let me worry about it. He told us to be anxious for nothing, to not worry about things. Why worry about tomorrow when tomorrow can worry about itself? Tomorrow has its own problems. And does worrying add anything to your life? No, absolutely not. It cannot add not one more minute to your life, but it sure can steal time away from you. Because while you are focused on what isn't happening or what you want to have happen, again, you are missing the present. You are absent in this moment because you're worried about things to come instead of just fully releasing it to God. And so I want to encourage you to practice prayers of surrender and just say, Lord, I surrender this situation to you. I trust you even though I don't understand. I am somebody who loves to understand things, okay? I love to be understood and I love to understand. And it is very difficult for me to move forward in situations where I do not have absolute clarity on what's going on. And a lot of times God is like, Hannah, I need you to move, even though you don't understand what I'm doing right now. And that is difficult for me. And God and I have this conversation because I'm like, you know how I am created. I don't like ambiguity. I like clarity. And God is like, but are you going to trust me? Because when things are crystal clear and it's guaranteed and there's certainty, what do you need faith for? I don't need faith to believe for the things that I already know how it's going to work out. That's not faith. That's certainty. So I have to be willing to move forward in the unknown. I have to be willing to move forward with the uncertainty. I have to be willing to move forward even though I don't have full understanding. And sometimes I never will get full understanding about a thing. But I trust the one who does have the full understanding. And I have to be able to follow his guidance and his lead and obey. It really comes back to obedience as well. To have grace for the alternative is to be willing to obey God even when you don't understand. Faith in God is, you got to have faith in God's bigger picture, trusting that his ways are higher. God sees the whole story. We only see part of it. His perspective is infinite and his plans for us are rooted in love, wisdom, and purpose. We must trust that when he doesn't answer the way we desire, he has a bigger and better plan. I remember Anthony's always shared with me this analogy of in football, right? So, and I watch football, but I may get this analogy wrong. But he talks about the quarterback and how when they are on the field and the offensive, linemen are lined up or whatever, all of their heads are down. They cannot see the field. The only person who has their head up is the quarterback, right? And the quarterback sees the field. The quarterback sees the players from the defensive side who are moving and going places. Everybody else is in ready position. So they're not seeing the field. They have to trust the quarterback in the call that he makes and know that, okay, this is the right call. God is our quarterback. He sees the field. He sees the whole story. He knows the story be ending before it even began. And we have to be a ready runner to go run and catch the ball. And see, the thing is that, and my pastor said this, because a quarterback, he throws the ball before the player even gets to the destination. So you have to be willing to hear the call to know what play is being ran. So you run the right play so that you can get in position to catch the ball when it gets there. Because the ball is already thrown. It's already thrown. But are you going to be in position to catch it? And you won't be there if you're over here trying to run your own play. God is telling you, I got the book of plays. I know what play to call. Trust me. Just run what I'm telling you. Be obedient. Hear what I'm telling you and do what I'm telling you to do. I know that it's not appearing the way that you want it to, but you don't see the whole field. You don't know the whole story. You don't see what defensive linebacker is coming up your way. But if you trust the call that I am putting into play, run it. And I promise you, when you get to your destination, you're going to catch the ball. Biblical example is Joseph. Joseph spent years enduring betrayal, slavery, and imprisonment. Yet God had a bigger picture in mind. What seemed like unanswered prayers or setbacks were part of God's plan to elevate Joseph and save many people through his leadership. Trusting in God's higher ways, Joseph famously said, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for my good." All of that Joseph went through, he was praying to God, but he also trusted him. And God had a bigger plan. When we read the story, like we know the ending of it, but when we first read that story and you trying to see where it played out, here it is. He was sold into slavery by his brothers. He went into Potiphar's house and got accused of assault by Potiphar's wife. He was thrown into prison. He, all of the stuff that he went through. And it seemed like, man, it's just setback after setback after setback. And the whole time it was a setup for him to be elevated into a position where he could save the children of Israel. Listen, guys, there is story after story after story after story in the Bible that talks about these things. But I don't even need to go to that. I want to encourage you to look back over your own life and think things over about the many times that God has come through for you, about the many times that what seemed like an unanswered prayer, what seemed like things were just not going the way that you expected and you hoped, how it turned back. Hindsight is 2020. When we look back on things and we're like, man, okay, God, I see what you did there. I see what you were trying to do. Not even trying. I see what you did. I see how you worked that whole thing out. I was worried and confused and just disappointed that you didn't allow me to get that job, that you didn't allow me to sell the house, that you didn't allow me to marry that person, or that you didn't allow me to move to this place. I was so disappointed. I felt so like rejected, not getting that job or not being able to start the business or starting the business and it failed. Y'all, God even had me start a women's ministry, and that I had to leave, that I had to let go because I moved. And I was disheartened about it. Because I was just like, God, why would you have, first of all, you know all the things that I went through to start this thing. That in and of itself, being obedient, what I went through to start that. And now you're telling me to put it down and just walk away? I didn't understand that. It made me question things for a little bit. I was like, did you really tell me to start this? Because why would you tell me to start something just to put it down, just to let it go? But then I had to realize when I look back, that was a test on whether or not I was going to be obedient, on whether or not I really was going to move and do what he told me to do, even when I was feeling persecution, even when I was being deterred from doing it. Sometimes we don't understand why God will require something of us and then tell us to let it go. But I promise you, if you just trust him and you keep walking with him, he'll reveal to you why. Or he'll reveal to you what it is he was trying to get you to. So, I hope y'all got something out of today's episode. It's always my prayer that you do. But I want to encourage you. I really do, in regards to the unanswered prayers. They're not really unanswered prayers. They're just God's alternative to what you were thinking, to what you were expecting, to the way that you wanted it to go. We don't have all the answers. We don't know how things are supposed to turn out. God's word also tells us that he will do exceeding abundantly above all that we could ever ask or think, according to the power that works in us. And I've always said it, and I think I've said this before, and I told you guys, you're going to hear me say it all the time, because this is the revelation that God has given me. If he's always meeting my expectations, how can he ever exceed them? That's what he spoke to me. Hannah, if I'm always meeting your expectations, if I always do it the way that you want me to, if I always do it just how you think it's supposed to go, how can I ever exceed it? God is not a man that he should lie. God cannot go against his word. His word says that he does exceeding. He can't do exceeding if he's always meeting. And we have finite minds. He's an infinite God. When we hold him to our standards, we are putting limits on him because he's God. And when we do that, we're treating him like a genie because we act like he serves us and it's not us serving him. Ooh, God doesn't serve us. We are his servants. We are serving him. How do we tell him how he should do things? We got to check ourselves. We sometimes come across as very entitled little brats because we're telling him how we want things to go, what we want. We giving him these wish lists. And what are we doing to honor God? And it's not, don't get me wrong now, because I'm not saying that it's by works, because it's simply by his grace that we are saved. We cannot earn it, and nor do we deserve it. It's simply because he gives it to us. And because we don't deserve it, and because we can't earn it, this is all the more reason why we should surrender our lives to him. Because that's our reasonable service. We are supposed to live our lives for him. Surrender it to him. Deny ourselves daily. Take up our cross to follow him and to do what he is calling us to do. Because we were created for his glory, for his purpose. All right, y'all. Well, that's it. That's my time for today. I hope you come back for the next episode. But just be encouraged, y'all. Please, like I said, I love to journal. Take your journal out. Start writing down the stuff and invite God into the conversation. Invite God into how you're feeling. Let him know, because he cares. And he already knows what you're thinking. He knows your thoughts before you think them. He knows your words before you speak them. So you might as well just have a conversation with him and allow him to reveal himself to you and get to know his character more. All right. Until next time. Peace out, world.